Hey there, it's Hillary, and I'd like to welcome you today. I'm going to be doing a book review for a book that I just finished and I really enjoyed it, and that book was Never Never by Brianna Shrum. This book was published in September of 2015, and it's actually the book that my book club is reading for our meeting this week. And I just finished it technically this morning. I finished the last couple pages. I was super tired last night and I just couldn't finish it. I was fighting to keep my eyes open, even though the story was so good. But anyway, getting into the book. This book, I loved it. It really got me out of the reading slump I had been in. I feel like a lot of the books I've been reading lately have not been what I have been in the mood for, or they have not been that great of reads. And this book really got me out of that. I read about 200 plus pages yesterday. This book has about 360 pages, and I think I was at about 125 or so, maybe 150, and I finished almost the entire book last night. I only had like 10 or 20 pages left to read this morning, and I just loved it. Getting into the book. If you can't tell from looking at the cover of it, this is a Peter Pan retelling, and I loved the idea for this story. I love a book that you get backstory on a villain. I just love it. So this book, you kind of get a backstory on Captain Hook before he was Captain Hook, and I just loved the idea for this story. So I'm going to attempt to tell a little bit about this story without spoiling too much. I was almost afraid that my Goodreads review was going to spoil too much, so I'm kind of going to say sort of the same things. So the idea behind this book is it starts out, Captain Hook is a little boy. He's living in London and he meets Peter Pan. He decides that he is going to go to Neverland with Peter Pan, but he doesn't want to stay there. Captain Hook, whose name is James, likes the idea of growing up. He wants to grow up. He wants to be a man. So he does not want to stay in Neverland where boys never grow up. So he tells Peter that he wants to go, but he only wants to go for a visit. So after they go and he's there for a little while, he experiences some of what Neverland is like, and he decides that he is ready to come home, and Peter Pan won't take him back home. And that's sort of where this story comes into play of why Captain Hook turns out to be the way he is, because we're all familiar with Captain Hook, either from seeing one of the movies that have real people, from the cartoon, like, you know that he is a bad dude. This story kind of gets you from the place where he's this sweet, innocent little boy to being a pirate captain. So I've really enjoyed this story. I really liked it. Like I said, it got me out of the reading funk that I had been in, and I really enjoyed the story. Not that the beginning wasn't interesting, but I wasn't as into the story until we got not even halfway through. It was probably, this book got me pretty intrigued pretty early into it. Not within the first few pages, but definitely before halfway through. I was totally engrossed in the story and I wanted to keep reading. I had to know what was going on. Some other things that happened throughout this story, you definitely get to see some familiar characters, but there's definitely a new twist on this story. You get some things happening in here that didn't happen in the cartoon. I saw Hook, and I liked that movie as well. Like, that's a different twist on Peter Pan as well. Not quite the same as this one, so it's not quite the same, but I liked that one as well. I do like Peter Pan. I think it's a really interesting story. I didn't like it as much as a kid as I do now. But I haven't seen any of the other Peter Pans that have real people besides Hook. And like I said, that's not really a good representation of what a classic Peter Pan is like. So I can't really compare the book to any of the other movies. And it is a retelling, so it's probably not going to follow very similar to some of the movies. There's definitely like a romance in this book that I was not expecting, and that was really interesting. Yeah, I definitely suggest this as a read. Like, if you're into fantasy or you're into retellings or you're into Peter Pan, I definitely think this would be a interesting read for you. I know that Goodreads, some of the people that have reviewed it haven't given it the highest ratings, only 2 and 3 stars. I gave it 4. I thought it was really good. I liked the ending. I thought it fit really well the way the story went. There's a line in the synopsis that says it's not about Peter Pan, it's about the boy whose life he stole, so it kind of gives Peter Pan like that little bit darker of a feel, and I definitely like that. Like I said, I love a backstory of why a villain is a villain. I always love books like that, and where it's made Peter Pan more of the villain, I guess you could say, in this story. I really liked it. I don't even know what else to say about this book other than I loved it. It kept me so intrigued, and reading it, I kept putting it down because I had to do other things, but I couldn't wait to go and pick it back up. And when I'm reading a book, that is what I want. And the books that I've been reading lately, I have not been getting that. And so I was so happy to have a book that I was so interested in reading. And it's really putting me in a good mood to keep reading. And I probably won't go back to the book that I was reading before I started this one. Like I said, this was our book for book club, so I stopped reading the one that I was reading to read our book for book club because I had to have it read by Wednesday this week. And I don't know if I'm going to go back to the one I was reading beforehand right away. It pained me to be reading that book, and I think I'd rather move on to something that I think that I'm going to enjoy. And maybe I'm going to try not to spend so much time reading books just because I think I should read them. Maybe I will focus more on reading books that really get me interested and make me want to read. Thank you for joining me for this book review of Never Never. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them. I'm always afraid of spoiling too much for a book review. I try to do spoiler free because if you haven't read a book and you listen to a review of mine and it makes you interested to read it, that's what I want. But I also don't want to spoil a book for someone. So if you have any questions about it, I will try to do my best to answer it without spoiling it for you. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to leave me a like. And if you'd like to see some more videos from me, please feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!